This is Louis Starr and my co-host Bob Bylsma. And we're just two guys sitting here talking to you on another segment about the cigar culture. We're seeking to understand the culture and the enjoyment of all things cigars. And another topic that we have for you today is about humidors. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you can store a cigar, and we're going to show you a few examples of the things that we have that we've either got from our travels or just buying cigars. But there's a lot that goes into humidors. It's a tricky thing, folks, and you got to know that whatever you decide on is what actually fits your particular lifestyle and perhaps even your budget.
Yeah, there's no right answer here.
No.
I mean, there are a lot of options. I think the first question is, do I really need a humidor? Because there's so many ways to store cigars that really function in an equivalent sort of way.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily all serve the same function, but the number of cigars you have,
Right.
and the length of time you plan to store them can make a difference.
Absolutely. All things considered, yes, it depends on where you're storing them, how you're storing them, maintenance of your storage device or item that you're using. And we want to start out with just giving you a few examples of the things that you may encounter or you have encountered and the options that are available to you. Now, folks, here's the disclaimer. We're not showing you everything that's available to you, but this is a nice array of things that you would run into one way or another. You may already have some of them. As a matter of fact, I'm sure many of you have probably done this already. But Bob, why don't you just get us started off on the first example?
Let's use the simplest example. You go to your local brick and mortar shop and you buy a stick or two or 10 and they put them in a little baggie.
Right.
And often they'll put a water pillow or a tiny Bovita pack in with them to maintain the humidity. But frankly, this is just fine.
Right.
Your cigars can stay indefinitely in a baggie like this if you have humidification.
Right.
Maybe up to a week or two without humidification, but if you put in something to humidify it, you can really keep them in here indefinitely. So if you only have a handful of cigars, this is not a bad storage technique. Do not leave these in your car or your truck or your trunk, because you need to maintain both humidity and temperature.
Right.
Those two things play in, and if you leave them in extreme cold, extreme heat, or even significant variations, they can destroy your cigars. So that's the one caveat to your storage, and I think we'll talk more about where to store your cigars as we go on.
Right. And I would imagine that many folks have experienced what we have already, and we're showing you these examples, but I've left cigars in my car, and not purposely. I forgot I had them in there, and then you come back and you find out your cigar is dried out, or in some instances it's too wet. And all of that depends on the ambient temperature, your outside temperature, and then the humidification that you may or may not have in the bag. There's a couple of things that, we have examples here. Many of you have seen tubos. Your cigars come in a tube. They look pretty. They store fairly well. And what most people have done, even though they have a slight cedar lining sleeve inside, they tend to leave them in there. Now, it's up to you, right? If you want to take it out and keep the tube, or if you want to leave it in the tube, have it sealed. I've done a couple of things. I've taken the cap off so that as it's in my humidor, it's getting proper level of humidification, and I've left it with the cap on. It varies based on where the cigar comes from, whether that has an effect on the cigar itself.
Regrettably, the owner of that particular tube has smoked that cigar. But the one point I'd make about that is there's no humidification to that in and of itself
None.
in that particular tube, and
Right.
that's fairly characteristic of most tubes.
Right.
So it will maintain humidity for a short period of time, but you need to get humidification in that, whether you leave the tube closed,
Right.
or whether you leave it open or you remove the cigar completely.
And in doing so, I would imagine after a few days, maybe a week's time, what then happens to that cigar? You wind up perhaps getting mold on it and thinking that it's plume. And that's the worst thing you want on a cigar, folks, is to have mold on the cigar, because pretty much it's dead. You got to let it go. Have a funeral service for it, say goodbye. We don't want that to happen to anybody. So just make sure you pay attention to that cigar. And if you're not smoking it right away, you might want to take it out of the tube and then store it separately. And another neat little device, and I like this because it's compact and it serves one purpose and one purpose only, and it does not have a humidification device attached to it. You can expand it to the size of your cigar to a certain length, and this is about a 7. Take the cap off here, put your cigar in, and if you're going out to play golf or you're going to go play a poker game and you're only going to have one cigar for the evening, store it in here, make sure that you smoke it, and then when you're done, collapse it, put it in your pocket, you're good to go. The third one of many different types of tubes that cigars come in is like this one. This happens to be from a brand that everyone knows. It's Atave. I'm going to do a little advertising for them. This one has at the foot of it, or the base of the tube, a humidification unit. And you can put distilled water in there. It's a nice little sponge. You moisten that, put it back inside, close the cap, and now your cigar will stay humidified. But another cool feature in this is if you don't want to cut your cigar, well, we got a surprise for you. Take off the cap, and for those of you who like to punch a cigar, and this is a pretty hefty size ring gauge punch, you have a built-in punch. This takes care of not having a cutter, and put the cap back on and you're good to go. And you multi-purpose, or it's reusable, you can repurpose it. This will last a long time as long as you take care of it, don't break it, and it's a good device to have if you're just carrying one cigar.
And it's really cool.
And it's really cool. People love to see that. Oh gee, what's that? Well, let me show you.
Okay, well, let's move then though to we're traveling. Whether you're going to a lounge, whether you're going out for a day, you want to take multiple cigars with you. I suppose you could get multiple tube cigars.
Yeah, if you want a pocket full of tubes.
Yeah, but carrying your cigars around in cellophane is a good way to crack your wrapper.
Yes.
And maybe destroy your cigar. So what do we have once we're talking about carrying more than a single stick?
Well, glad you asked, Bob. Well, folks, this is a three-finger stick carrier. It's a hard case. It's got built-in cedar lining, which is what you want, and you don't always have to carry just 3 cigars. You know, so they have some sticks that are humidification sticks that you can put in here, so you basically reduce that by 1, so you carry 2 sticks. Or what I've done is take the smaller Bovita packs, slide that in with the cigars after I place the cigars in there, close it up, and I can carry this all day, or I can leave it in there for a couple of days. It's got humidification and it's at the right level, and it won't dry out. And it's a hard case, so you always know that you have this on you.
And the small Bovita packs are great for those particular
Absolutely.
types of carriers.
They fit well, and I just love it. And what I have here is something that's a bit of an antique, but it's a great one. A friend of mine gave me this that his grandpa had, and it's an MGM Grand leather soft case, 3-fingered cigar carrying case. And as you can see, I have 3 little beauties in here to show you that it will hold 3 cigars. And this one is not lined with cedar. This is all leather. But this is a daily carrier, folks. You do not want to leave your cigars in here more than a day. The potential for them drying out will increase, and then you'll be sad because you may have put some great cigars in there and now the leather itself has soaked up all the humidification, and your cigars will be dried out. But it's a softer case. You can put this in your pants pocket if you want, but usually your vest pocket, or you lay it down, whatever you have. And let's not forget the women that smoke, right? I don't want to do that. Ladies, get yourself one of these, and you can put it in your purse or whatever it is you're carrying in your handbag, and now you have your smokes with you. And then again, another hard case, same premise. It's a hard case, holds a slightly larger ring gauge, but it's cedar lined and works well, and come in various colors. You would love this. But we have more.
Well, we're still working on travel humidors here.
Absolutely.
So you and I are going on a trip, for example. We took a nice trip to Las Vegas at one point.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to buy cigars there and I'm going to smoke cigars somewhere else,
Right.
I may need more than 3.
Between
So we
us, yeah.
So we have travel humidors, and you'll find these in various sizes, usually plastic. There are some exceptions to that. This is a 15 count travel humidor. So we have, again, Bovita packs. I would tend to use a larger Bovita pack with something if I had more than a few cigars in here.
Right.
But this will hold, it's got various levels to it, which you can use this padding or not.
Right.
I often take it out so I can put more cigars in. But it seals quite nicely, and 15 cigars, it travels. You really don't have to worry about it. Generally speaking, these seal super tight, and you're not losing any humidity. It does come in a variety of sizes. Another size we have here, this is a 40 count travel humidor. So you can see, again, it has the lining here, 4 levels, 10 across. I've seen these, I think, as many as 80. That
Wow.
looks like a small suitcase.
Oh.
I don't know that I'd want to carry anything that big, but we have this as another size of travel humidor. But you have something as a travel humidor over here that's kind of.
I do, but I have a surprise for you, Bob.
You do?
I do. See, so the big boy, this, folks, is a huge, you can't see it, I don't know if you get the dynamics of this, but this is extremely huge. You can travel with it, and I've put in, I'd say about 100 or so cigars in it. It's sort of designed just like what Bob just showed you, but this is the big brother to it all. And it has the foam inside, and I've added a tray, which if you can see that, you can put the tray in there, but you can put more than one tray. And I have some cigars in there. It's lined up, it's protected, and it's a beautiful thing. And this is my carry-on. And it also has the dial here where you can sort of let excessive air out so that you don't have too much air inside your humidor. But it protects them well. I guarantee you, if you use something like this, you're gonna want to pack it.
Yes, I think the other thing about that that gauge you have there, and this has one too, which is it enhances the seal.
Yeah.
It tightens that seal so you're not losing humidity.
But what you were asking about earlier, and so without being pretentious, this is just one of many different types. If for the man or woman that wants to carry, it only holds 4 sticks, but it's great. It's got nice wood lining. I also add some little cedar spills in there just to give it that cedar effect. But you can carry your lighter, and you carry a cutter, and if you only want to carry 3 sticks, a small humidification device that goes in there to help regulate everything. And I love this because, again, it protects my cigars. And typically if I'm going out on a day trip, you know, just doing something for a few hours, I'll put 3 sticks in there and I'm good to go.
I think the other thing I wanted to point out, and then I have a question for you, is generally these will have their own humidification unit.
Yeah.
As well. So your cigars are not only in a nice tight seal. I tend to use Bovita packs with mine, but generally they will come with their own humidifier. Do you when you use a case like this that doesn't have a space for your lighter and cutter, do you usually put your lighter and cutter in there anyway?
It kind of depends on the lighter and the cutter. Typically I do. because I don't want to have to start searching for my lighter and cutter. I know it's all with my cigars, and all the accessories that I need are in one spot.
So what I hear you saying is that you've seen me fishing through my pockets for 15 minutes trying to figure out where my lighter and cutter is.
Exactly. Which is why I like this unit, because there's a space for the lighter and the cutter. You never have to search. It's a wonderful thing. Well, I'll speak on, the benefits and drawbacks to having the various types. But, we barely touched on what you go to once you start getting into tabletops.
Well, do I need a tabletop?
Or do you need one? With all of this all
Okay.
this variety in storage, do you need a tabletop? Well, you may not, because Bob,
We have here a storage bag.
Absolutely.
This is actually made by Bovita. I think we first saw these about a year ago.
Yeah.
But I've been using Ziploc bags for a long time to store cigars,
Right.
and they do quite nicely. I don't know that there's any different. This plastic's a little heavier than a regular Ziploc bag.
Right.
But Bovita says that this will last for 6 months.
yeah,
This may go forever. Honestly, I've had sticks in here for well over 6 months, and my Bovita pack has shown no wear at all in it.
That's great.
And I think that they're just trying to kind of hedge their bets in case something happens. But how many cigars can you get in here? I know I have had at least 90 in
Wow.
one of these Bovita bags. I think they run 10 or 15 bucks if
Yeah.
you want to do this instead of a Ziploc bag.
Right.
But it's really nice. You throw your Bovita pack in there, and frankly, you put it off somewhere and you forget it. It's a nice little storage unit,
Right.
because you don't run into the issue you do with wood humidifiers and some of the other types, or humidors, and some of the other types of humidors,
Right.
where you actually have to monitor humidity.
Right.
And so this is a store it and forget it. It actually looks kind of nice in terms of the way that they're in there.
Yeah.
But this is a nice little option if you don't want to spend the money on the humidor. And we'll
Right.
get into, well, why do you want a wood humidor in a minute?
Right.
Okay, so we have this as an option. Another option we have that is quite popular is, excuse me while I reach down here for a minute, the Tupperware,
Oh,
which is nothing more than Tupperware,
yeah.
which you pop that lid off, you store your cigars, you throw in some Bovita packs or your favorite form of humidification,
Yeah.
you use what you want, you seal it right back up, and you pretty much forget it. Much like with the bag,
Yeah.
I think you can pretty much leave that and forget it because you've got a nice tight seal.
Yeah.
The one benefit of the bag that we didn't talk about is when you use that bag, let's open it up here.
Yes. You have to illustrate what's needed.
You want to get all of that air out of there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason is because that air will affect your humidity.
Yeah.
And so then you're going to have to monitor that. With the Tupperware, you can't do that. And so that's one of the benefits of the bag over the Tupperware.
Yeah.
So at that point, we've kind of gone through a fair range of alternatives.
Right.
Why would you want a wooden humidor?
Well, why would you want a humidor at all? That's what we said, right? There's so many options to not having a humidor, but in particular, why would you want a wooden humidor? Well, it's not so much the construction of the humidor itself being wood, but the internal composition, if you will. You should always look for a humidor that's cedar lined. One of the benefits of that is once you cure it and you get everything regulated, that means that the cedar has soaked up all the moisture that it needs to return it back to the cigars that you start to store in it. If you get plain wood, it's not going to be good. There's a lot of novelties, humidors out there, even some of the giveaways that you might get when you order cigars, and they typically do not have the right cedar wood in them. And it's got to be Spanish cedar. From my experience, that's what's recommended. That's best for any humidor. And when you buy boxes, you see that little sheet of Spanish cedar that comes with it. That's a dual-purpose thing because they'll sometimes ship them with the Bovita pack and the cedar sheet that's on there, that is letting you know this is what's required for you to maintain that cigar's humidification. And when you get them, there's so many different types and sizes, and we start to get into, well, where am I going to put this? You know, there's tabletops that look great on your desk, or wherever you might want to place it. But then let's look at, well, if I go from where we all start, mostly, a tabletop, and we build ourselves up to needing something even larger. You get a small cabinet to where you get a large cabinet. Well, it's now become a piece of furniture.
Well, and it all, functionally it always is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an aesthetic thing. This is a 50 count humidor that has a different kind of humidification system in it. So this will hold 50 sticks. I took out the humidifier that's here, that would go here, and I replaced it with some beads.
Okay.
And these beads take distilled water.
Okay.
And in theory, they will keep your humidification around 70. You need a hygrometer to manage that humidity, to make sure you're getting that. But this was my first humidor. It's a 50 count humidor. You can get a 100 count. You can get a 500 count.
Yeah.
We can move into the cabinets, and we'll talk about cabinets a little later. But let's talk about humidification units, because once you go to these,
Right.
you need something. You can use Bovita packs.
Right.
And I actually meant to bring something that I forgot, which is Bovita has for desktop humidors, actually has a nice little wooden backing that you can attach to the top here.
Okay.
And it will actually hold those Bovita packs so that you don't just have them thrown over the top of your cigars. Again, it's an aesthetic thing more than anything else, but it's a really nice aesthetic thing. Other humidification devices, your typical desktop humidors may come with something like this,
Right.
which you fill with distilled water,
Right.
or or a mixture with a solution, and again, you have to monitor your humidity. Smaller humidors like this one will come with something like this, which just attaches in here, and then you have a hygrometer over here.
Yeah.
I kind of like beads.
Okay.
And these beads, much like the ones I just showed you in there, you add distilled water, you take off the lid, you put that in your humidor, and again, you monitor your humidity. When the beads shrink, you add more distilled water.
Yeah.
As long as your humidity stays in the range you're looking for, they work great. What I don't like about these is they take up a lot of space in your humidor. And so that's why I prefer these little corner units that you see here. Let me see if I can move this so that it can be seen, which is, you see that they fit nicely in the corner. You can put sticks around them without it taking up 3 inches of your humidor. So again, same concept with those beads, where you as they go down, you just add distilled water, and in theory it maintains your humidity. But how do you measure humidity, Louis?
Well, how do you measure humidities? There's analog hygrometers and there are digital hygrometers. I personally like the digital ones. I can not have to calibrate them, because you get to the analog ones, you have to calibrate them before you use them, so that you make sure you get a proper reading. Analog works for me. That's my preference. Whatever you guys decide on, it's all based on personal preference. But for me, I look at it as it's giving me the proper reading without having to go through the process of calibrating it. And then once I put it in there, I get close enough to the mark of where I want my humidification levels. If I want to keep it just at or slightly above 69, I'm there. If it's at 72, I'm good to go. I usually don't have any of my readings above 72. And I rarely drop below 69. I might get to about 67, but that's because I've been in and out of my humidor. But it's easy to just keep that moderately set and maintain. I don't know, what's your preference, Bob?
I prefer Bovita packs so that I don't have to monitor it. The other thing we haven't talked about, as you get into larger desktop humidors or cabinet humidors, is the Cigar Oasis or other electronic humidifiers. And why don't you talk a little bit about the Oasis?
Well, I have two types, Bob. So glad you brought it up. I have the Ultra, and I have the Magna. The Magna is Wi-Fi capable, so I download an app to my phone. I use that in my cabinet, and it monitors the humidor for me, and it lets me know. I get an alert if the water level is low. So if I'm away, I come back. If the water level is low, I've been notified. I fill it up. We're good to go. It's really simple. It's a plug-and-play unit. I love it. It's one of the best purchases I've made for a humidification device. The other one that I have, a little bit different. It came with that little green sponge that everybody has seen it, and we have them. And you have to constantly fill that up with water. The convenience of the Magna versus the Ultra is there's a little slot on the Magna, and it's easy to put water back in there, seal it back up, you're good to go. The other one, you have to slide the top open and then fill it up with water. It has two fans on top, and I know that they've come up with a newer model. I have an older model, I've had it for a while, and it's not Wi-Fi capable. But that's for my humidor cabinets that hold 1,000 or better in cigars. And because I have boxes as well as loose sticks, it's about placement. Where do I place this so I get the proper humidification for my cigars, because I need to protect that investment. Well, the jets on or the fans I should say, they sound like jets. The fans on the Magna pushes a lot of humidification up and through my humidor, where I don't have to worry about that in my cabinet. The other one, not so much, because if I put too many boxes anywhere around there that's going to block that flow, then wherever that unit is mostly where that humidification is circulating, and it won't get up or down below where it's been placed. So granted, there's a lot of things that people can do to sort of remediate that issue, and I've known guys that have modified their humidors and used some PVC and added some holes and attached it, but that's a little too much work. I don't want to go through all that. I might as well just build a humidor. But I like that feature. And then I have, for my tabletops, the smaller unit from the same manufacturer, Oasis, and they have some that are now Wi-Fi capable, which I wish they had that when I bought them. And but the same concept, you have to add water, and it's a little cumbersome to do that on a couple of them. But I like the fact that I now have a cabinet that I've grown into. Again, caveat to all of you that are just starting, you might get where we are with having to need more storage, and I don't see that as a problem.
I don't either. I think, and cabinet humidors are only limited by your budget, right, your space, and your imagination. We've seen people turn all kinds of furniture into cabinet humidors.
Right.
What I do like about the Oasis, and I use mine in my cabinet humidor as well, is that it has a digital, it's a computer.
Yeah.
And so it has, it digitally monitors the humidity levels.
Right.
It will, if it goes below the set humidification, that fan will come on. When it reaches that humidification, the fan goes off.
Right.
So it creates a lot of stability that you don't necessarily have with the other forms. So
yeah, no, it's good, and just to let you guys know, your taste in what it is, what you want to use for humidification will vary depending on how and where you're storing your cigars. But let's not forget that one essential component, and we touched on it a little bit, but just to give a little bit more information, is measuring the ambient temperature, the temperature outside the humidor, and making sure that you're regulating your humidor to balance with that. There's a chart that's available. You can look it up online. You can Google it, or you can even check on, we'll have an episode that will just give you the chart and where to set your humidification levels based on your relative, your ambient temperature to match your relative humidity. Well guys, this has been a great discussion about why we even need a humidor. Many of you may not even have one. You don't need one, or if you want one, get one. There's not a problem with that. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It all depends on how you want to store it and how many cigars you buy. So folks, listen, just subscribe to our page, give us a like, and shoot us a message. We'd love to talk about things that you have an interest in that we haven't touched on yet. But this is two guys just sitting here talking cigars. I'm Louis Starr, and this is Bob Bylsma, and we appreciate you watching.